506. Thank you. 506 days. Can you believe this? Day in and day out. And this case, I want everyone to know that the case of our son who was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss, huge military installation, in July of 2020, for being a whistleblower, he blew the whistle. And he blew the whistle on criminal trafficking, fraud. He blew the whistle so loud that there were audits. There were audits, and the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. And of course, he turned in these sex tapes to the Child Protective Services, which mean, child porn. Well, who was in possession of child porn? Leilani Hart, who was there on Fort Bliss all the time, causing all kinds of trouble, and having, giving sexual favors away in order to control the CID, in order to brag about having control over the CID, and who has been accused, um, multiple reports uh, for the tampering, y'all, the tampering of files, the tampering of files, um, in order to protect, maybe this is what she was trying to protect, um, the murder of Richard Halliday. Protect that, right? Protect that from getting out. Cover it up. I think the better way I should say it is to um, say she's covering it up in order, I mean, Dallas Hart, her son, is Richard's platoon leader. You have all in her own, this is not my words, this is her own written in documents, that her husband was up to no good with veterans disability benefits files, these files of our most vulnerable there at the VA, the Veterans Affairs, the veterans files, that he was up to no good with those files and their information and their identities and all of their very confidential information. So this case that Nadal Baim, who is somebody, he is somebody. We were told he's nobody. He's nobody. Don't pay attention. Don't look. This is Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. He does. He is a traitor to this country, a traitor to his position, to the army, to every soldier. Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe needs to be stripped of his uniform, of his stars. Michael Garrett is a traitor to his 4 stars. We've entrusted our most valuable assets, our Constitution, the defense of our Constitution, to these traitors. They're absolute traitors, acting as, you know, like they're general. They're imposters. They're imposters, and I think they're usurpers. I don't know. Maybe no. I guess they got their. I guess the Senate Arms Committee gave them their stars. So no, I can't say that. But they are absolutely traitors to this country, and they need to be stripped from their beautiful. There are uniforms, stripped from our beautiful uniforms, our stars, our benefits that we give them. They work for us, not the other way around. And they have forgotten that. And they're working for foreign and domestic enemies. It's very clear. So this case, it's, and it goes on and on and on. The lying and the deception and the cover up, because of their, for financial gain, for power, they have betrayed us. And this case goes so fast. It moves so fast. Um, every day thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on. So what's going on right now? Is it not enough that Nadal Baim is exposed to have so many I mean, he is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM. He is the FBI man that says Richard's remains were found, and they were found in Juarez, Mexico. Right? He's also the bidder for Western Frontier Trading, bidding to give over $3 million, up to $3 million to law enforcement in ammunition and bullets. And don't forget, the big thing that we're hearing, why they don't want the Walmart mass shooting case to really go forward is because of the bullets, the brown tip bullets, the green tip bullets. Because those are military grade, those are law enforcement grade. Where do those bullets come from? So this is a very big deal part of this whole to break the case, because if we break the Walmart mass shooting case, and that's why it's not going forward, but if we break that, if we really at this, then of course we're going to break Richard's case. But we just had this huge decision to make about these imposters, right? These individuals that sit on a bench pretending, masquerading to be a judge, and they're not. They have no legal basis for all of their rulings, whether they are protecting criminals, giving them lesser sentences, whatever they're doing with children, whatever they're doing with mental health, whatever they rule on, you need to take your medicine and you need to just walk free. I mean, it was a magistrate judge that let all the border, I think it was like 300 border rioters, just go, let's go. And then they stopped that from happening. I mean, it's absolutely a mess because those five individuals that are masquerading as judges, and they're not judges. Think about how many cases, thousands of cases, because they handle 90% of the cases, the criminal cases in El Paso County. And of course, Richard was wrongfully, unlawfully arrested, unlawfully imprisoned. His civil rights were absolutely violated by this magistrate court. And it's the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court. Um, so also the Walmart mass shooting went through this court. And I mean, that is huge. So much news every day it's coming in. And now we have all this breaking news with John Briggs. John Briggs and even the name of this live stream podcast, it changed so fast that I didn't even change the name of the podcast because um something's going on there in El Paso. Something's going on. Keep your eyes on El Paso. We're getting all kinds of word that things are really shaking there, and that our hundreds of letters, inquiries, demands, um, there it's shaking. You sound the trumpet, right? You sound the trumpet and you sound the trumpet, and there's only so much vibration the criminal, uh, I guess the house of cards can take before it's shaking. And when those cards start falling, and we just got to keep going. So join us in sounding the trumpet. You put in letters, ask for open records. Um, you know, the magistrate court, go to the Texas Constitution and look it up. They were supposed to be elected and answer to the people. But they kept that going because if you have appointed judges, it is so much easier to control the criminal cases the way the the political elite, the criminal network wants it to be, right? Whoever can control the judges, right? Can control the rulings, can control the law. And God warns about that all the time. Whoever can control the law, they weaponize it. And even today, this morning, early this morning, it's been a long day because so many things have happened. And it's like, wow, that was this morning. I thought that must have been a couple days ago, but no, it was this morning. Tucker Carlson talked to Julia. She's not a reporter, but she has been covering. I'm trying to think about what her name is, but covering January 6th. And I mean, she knows who was charged, what prison they're in, how long they've been in there, uh, what they're suspected of doing, what really happened with them. And she has concluded, even though this January 6th is not finished yet, but that the law enforcement was weaponized against Americans, especially conservative Americans. And absolutely, I told you we were saying the Lord's Prayer and we were tear gassed on that day that we were there. And I think nobody argues with the fact that our own government now, um, especially in El Paso with the military, has been weaponized against the people. And of course, this is all about Richard for us and getting his remains back and getting accountability. But think about El Paso, think about the military, think about how many people have been hurt, how many people have been wrongfully kept from their children or made to take medication or made to take a mental health or kept from taking a mental health or um, how many criminals have been let go, how many sentences have been cut short because of this magistrate court and how that has affected and grew the criminal trafficking network there that has made really, I was talking to a friend and they were like, it's like demon possession. Um, it corrupted, it compromised so many that they can't say anything. They're slaves. They're slaves to the criminal network. And she goes, I call that demon possession. When you're a slave to the criminal network and you're just a puppet now, you can't say anything. You have to just go along with it. You just have to go along with it and you can't you don't even have the words to say otherwise. It's just a life of lies, a life of deception, a life of evil. And think about the amount of people that are living that in that hypnosis, right? For over, well, let's just say hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children that are mostly dead now going through that area. And of course, the care of them was to those that were leaders at Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss And of course, now that they're mostly dead, and nobody argues about the criminal trafficking. Nobody can argue about the weapons trafficking, the ammunition trafficking, the supplies, the equipment trafficking. No one can argue about the illegal, fentanyl trafficking and other illegal drugs trafficking. No one can argue about the human trafficking and all of the fraud, the money laundering, and everything that goes along with it, and the violence that goes along with it, including so many murders. And no one can argue because the evidence outside of the fine Richard Halliday case has piled up and piled up by traffic stops and other cases and other arrests and everything. So it is not absurd to say that there is a major criminal trafficking network in El Paso that's causing terrible, terrible conditions. And why is that allowed to be? What's going on in the district attorney's office? Well, John Briggs is there. John Briggs is over the murder cases. And he absolutely was justifiably terminated under Yvonne Rosales. He was kicked out. He was fired. And our open records, what seems to us very clear, is that he schemed in order to get that job back. These are cushy jobs. These are very, very cushy jobs. And, and now he's in the news again. He's in the news. And, I don't think that you're going to be able to say John Briggs's case without saying Richard Halliday's case. Because we're responding to his illegal confession. The case that he started is really his confession. And it's fascinating. And it has everything to do with Richard's case. Everything. Because if the criminal uh, justice system in El Paso is compromised and corrupted, then how are we, I've been told from the very beginning by even the agents and the imposters and the trolls and all of them, you got to get a lawyer and you got to sue, you got to get a lawyer and you got to sue. I absolutely understand why, because I was like, why do they want me to do that? Because they're doing everything they can to cover up. Why are they telling me this? Right? And now I understand. Because the system has been weaponized against the innocent to protect the guilty, the criminals. And so they want you to go into that system because it's so expensive, right? To try to pay for a lawyer and everything. We have it's crazy. But it's so expensive. And then you get a magistrate imposter. You don't even get anything for your money. You get an imposter sitting on the bench masquerading as a judge. Uh, yeah. And how are you going to rule fairly in Richard's case for a wrongful death or whatever? First, you got to clean that. It's a blessing that there is no statute of limitations when it comes to wrongful death, because we've got to get a fair shake with our wrongful death, and the only way to do that is to get a proper criminal justice system. because we work so hard behind the scenes, and you would not even believe some of the stuff we have to deal with. And John Briggs is the reason for that. He's an obstructor. He is a political machine, a political attack dog machine, or, well, he's part. Uh, are our allegations against him is that he schemed against a duly elected district attorney that was looking into the Walmart mass shooting, wanting to bring it forth and put it in the court. The same thing with Richard's case, and also with the El Paso Community Foundation uh, investigation into the distribution of the vast amount of Walmart victim funds that were, that needs to be looked into. But of course, our concern in any of those things happening means that we'll get justice in Richard's case. Understand that if the system starts working, then we have so much evidence. We absolutely will get justice. And so they're working very, very hard to block that. That's why John Briggs is in the news again. Um, and of course, by KTSM. KTSM, Danae Katzen, Jonathan Ambrose, Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, David Candelara. They have so many conflicts of interest. And I think things are happening, and they are trying to do whatever they can to create stories that they can use in the court to defend themselves with. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think that's what John Briggs is trying to do. So, but we've, absolutely are responding to all of that. We see what they're trying to do. And this case, can you imagine every day you have to pay attention? Every day. And I want to say thank you to everybody because I've been being sent a lot of information and I have to go through it. The the amount of time spent in this case, you just wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't believe it. So we don't want another family to have to go through this. But we hear that the institutions are starting to grind, and for justice sake, and pray that they grind properly, um, and we get justice, and we get Richard's remains, and we get the arrests of those that murdered Richard and also worked so hard to cover it up. That is, uh, if you have any questions, I'm very glad to answer because this whole thing with the magistrate court, the whole thing with John Briggs, why is that important in our son's case? It's difficult for some people to understand. But when you know that Richard was a whistleblower and that they weaponized the system against him and they wrongfully arrested him unlawfully. It wasn't by accident. They absolutely did it on purpose. And they unlawfully um, imprisoned him. So once you understand why that's important in Yvonne Rosales' case, in the Walmart case, in our son's case, it's like the same story every time of this intimidation. And of course, now I believe it's a real threat of violence because we are uh, putting it all together and getting the evidence of the connections with Michael Xavier Garrett, a 4-star general, and getting the people and uh, the testimonies that absolutely make him totally involved in our son's case and in the criminal activity of the group, of the criminal group. And that's huge. So of course they're not going to be happy, um, and they're imposters. They pose as a group that is, might have a benevolent title, might have even a Christian title, and yet they are up to the worst kind of crimes. So it's just a cover. And so I want everyone to know that this they kind of have the opposite day going on, right? A lot of projection. And they're masters at it. They're masters propagandists. Okay. They know how to put forth the propaganda. So pray to shield you from that, and pray that they're, well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what happened, in the reports of what happened today, because we're getting um, reports that major steps were taken. So thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.